There's been a lot going on in the world lately, and all of that unfortunately affects travels. So I just wanted to run through a few random travel thoughts I've had recently and just see how this goes. Don't really have a script, just gonna talk about what pops into my mind based on current events that are happening in the world. So the first one that I've been reading a lot about recently is the partial government shutdown that's happening in the United States. It's affecting the TSA, and a lot of people are understandably calling out or leaving their jobs, which means that security checkpoints do not have enough people to process the amount of travelers that are traveling, and it's causing great delays. And there's really not a ton people can do about it. Um, I guess some tips and tricks that are always tried and true. They may not be perfect in this situation, but I do think they're just good things to follow regardless of a government shutdown or not. One of those is arriving early at the airport. I myself have some domestic travel coming up here pretty soon, and if this is still going on, I will arrive to the airport probably 2 or 3 hours early, depending on the airport size. I'm flying out of a small airport, so 2 hours should probably be fine. But if you're flying out of a major airport, I'm talking like LAX, O'Hare, gosh, Houston, DFW, JFK, the big ones, the big hubs, at least 3 hours early. I know that sounds insane for a domestic flight, but believe me, you're gonna thank yourself later, and 3 hours may not be enough. I highly recommend if the airport you're traveling through has a service that allows you to monitor the wait times at TSA, please use it. It is just helpful. I find when you travel, the more data you have, the better it is. Of course, there's other options as well. If you have TSA pre-check, that helps. If the TSA pre-check line is open, sometimes when there's staffing issues, they do shut those down. So just be aware of that. Other options you can have or a third-party service like Clear. I believe they offer free trials that you can cancel after the fact. I personally have never used them. I think they're rather irritating, actually. But all that to be said, if you need to make a flight, that might be an option for you. Though those are some things you can do about the timing, just to help give yourself time, give the agents time, and as always, just pack your patience and be prepared. Don't be that person who's taking out their belts and their coat and taking their phones out and their all the things out while you're standing there in line. Have that all prepped before you show up. Shoes, I understand. You can take your shoes off once you get there, but just do what you can to be prepared. Pack appropriately. Maybe check a bag so it's that much less you have to handle through TSA. Just things that I would consider. I feel like I rambled on that now for probably like 4 minutes, so I think I'll change to a different topic. We know that there's been a lot of travel disturbance, especially in like Europe and Middle East, because of the current conflict that is happening over there. And I could go on and on and on about different things about that, but I think the first thing we'll talk about are flights and flight prices and how that's being affected. Uh, Realistically, if you needed to book a flight, you should have booked yesterday. I'm also guilty as charged. There's been a few flights that I have, for various reasons, not been able to book as of yet, and I'm sure the flight prices have gone up. Also, this is totally random. I just realized this is the first video I'm filming in my glasses. So that tells you how tired I am. Normally I wear contacts, but now I'm in my glasses. That's strange. I think I'm actually gonna take them off because that's really weird for me. But anyway, all to be said, flight prices, yeah, they're gonna go crazy. They're not gonna get better. As always, I recommend booking early. You can use different travel sites. I love using Google Flights, but if you want to use Skyscanner, you can totally do that as well. I think it's also important to find flights when there's sales going on, just because that can help, especially in situations like this. Also consider taking the less ideal flight. Perhaps you have a couple changes. That has its own set of problems, but if money really is, your biggest factor in trying to cut that cost, it might be worth it. Again, on the flip side, sometimes it's not, especially in these current situations. You can swing it nonstop all day long. Uh, just don't try and change flights. Also try and fly through hubs that are farther away from the conflict. It's just helpful. Maybe also try airports that aren't the major hubs, say like London, for example, instead of flying through Heathrow, fly through Luton or Stansted or Gatwick. They generally are a little bit cheaper because they have the budget airlines that operate out of there, and their operating costs are lower at those airports. So that's just another thing that's happening. Flight prices are the way they are. It sucks because coming into the summer season, but we're at their mercy. So book today if you have like a Harry Potter, if you have a time turner, go back book before all this. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. So book as soon as possible. And the last thing is just, I think, just safety in general. Tensions are high in the world. Um, People are feeling empowered, I guess is the word to use. Uh, Emboldened, maybe. So just be really careful if your country has different enrollment programs, enroll in them. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm US based and I've heard a lot of negative things recently about the STEP program. Um, I would still enroll in it just because, but I would not rely on it. Same thing, like travel insurance, just be aware of what your policy does and doesn't cover because you do have to self evacuate. To my knowledge, travel insurance doesn't cover war. So just be very careful. I think also being aware of your surroundings, get off your phone, have your head up, notice what's going on. I think it's also important to be very aware of what you're around when you're in another city. Historically, I would say it's always great to know where your embassy or your consulate is. It's also now really great to know where other countries' embassies and consulates are because depending on where they stand in this current conflict, they may be a higher target than historically, and that's not somewhere you want to be. I hate saying that, but the reality is I think we need to be very, very aware of where we are and the potential for things to happen because unfortunately things do happen. People are unpredictable and there are people who choose to do two negative things versus people who understand that the world is a whole heck of a lot kinder place than it's portrayed in the media, and people are a lot better than they're portrayed in the media. People are not their governments, and governments are not their people. So, but unfortunately, not everyone sees that. So, I hope that it's making a little bit of sense. So, just be very conscious of what you're around. I have always historically tried to avoid crowds because you just don't know what's going to happen. I try to stay very aware of where I am, using a map, looking at a map before I go somewhere, just to kind of have ideas. Always have emergency contacts. Sadly, have an emergency plan for getting out. If depending on where you are in the world. I know I also am always very aware of flights, even if I'm not booking them, just so I kind of have an idea of who's flying where and when. It seems totally silly. I've done that always in case of other things like non-emergency situations, like when I was in Nice last year and there was a train strike and my train got canceled, and it wasn't a problem because I had already looked at flights and I was aware that I had a backup plan to take flight instead of the train the next day. And so within like 5 minutes, I booked the flight and canceled my train and everything was fine. So I've always done that just as like a positive thing to reduce stress, but now I see it as something that's really more of like a safety thing. So I feel like I've kind of harped on that for a while, and I'm gonna leave it there. But those are just some random thoughts I've been having as a traveler. Yeah, I've traveled a lot. In case you're new here and you actually made it to the end of the video, I've been to all 7 continents twice. I've been to 30 countries. Been to I'm looking at my map behind the camera. I've been to some of those countries multiple times, so I'm all over the place. I knock on wood, I feel like I've been there, done that. Got the t-shirt, seen just about everything you could throw at me. except for the huge emergencies. Like, I've never been in a war situation, and I hope to never be in a war situation. But yeah, I'll just say, been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. Sign up for my newsletter. Check out the blog. Check out other videos. I promise they're a lot maybe more upbeat than this one. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.